Imagine if it were possible to get ChatGPT to answer any question you ask it. Sometimes you type something in and it's like, I can't help you with that. I think that's really annoying and honestly pretty lame, but they do it. But imagine if there were a way around that, where you never ran into it again, where anything you talk about, it's totally private and inaccessible to anyone else in the world. Well, you'd have your own private, censorship-free model you could talk to about anything you want. Yes, you could even talk about stuff like, how do I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi? Not that you should, but you could. Wouldn't that be crazy? Well, I learned how to do it, and I'm going to show you in this video exactly how it works. Be sure, though, to stick around all the way to the end, because I'm going to show you something called a jailbroken model. What that means is someone took one of those base models that are open sourced and modified it, getting rid of all the guardrails. But please use caution here. These should be for research only. It's dangerous stuff. Do not hold me responsible. I didn't create them. I'm just showing you what I learned about. But stick around to the end so I could show you that. And if this sounds like fun, well, let's jump in. Okay, so before we get into jailbreaking, it helps to understand how these models actually work. Every large language model starts as a base model, which is basically trained on trillions of words from books, websites, and code. That's where it learns language, reasoning, and how to predict the next word in a sentence. That's basically all model is doing. But here's the catch. Some of the base models have been tuned with built-in guardrails. Those rules, like what it can and can't talk about, are baked directly into the weights, meaning the core math of the model itself. So even if you write a clever prompt, it's still just following the instructions underneath. That's why you get the I can't help you with that. That's basically what that is. A jailbroken model, though, is one where somebody has modified or fine-tuned that base model. You can only do that if you have the base model to start with. Sometimes they're adjusting the weights, sometimes it's training on new data, but essentially it's just ignoring those built-in restrictions. It's essentially the same brain underneath, but it's just retraining it to stop saying no and just start saying yes or giving you answers. So on top of all that foundation, there are two layers that you can control yourself. There's the system prompt, which defines who the AI is, its tone, behavior, and boundaries. This actually exists in all the APIs with ChatGPT and all the other LLMs. But there's also the user prompt, which is the one you're probably most familiar with, which is essentially what you've been typing in every time you talk to ChatGPT. That's your actual question or your command. When you're using ChatGPT online, the system prompt is hidden behind the scenes, but when you run the model locally, you actually have access to that system prompt. You could rewrite it, and that's where you can start having some of these like jailbreak-like behaviors, but you're not actually modifying the base model in any way. But there's also fine-tuning, where you can retrain the model to your own examples, so it starts adapting to your code, your tone, your workflow. I personally haven't done that ever, but that's something you could do. But think of it like this: the base training, that's the stuff that is in those giant data centers. That's what's giving the model its brain. The fine-tuning reshapes its personality and its knowledge, so you can make it more specific. The system prompt just says like, hey, this is who you are right now, and this is what we want you to be. And jailbreaking tweaks or retrains the underlying model so it stops obeying the original rules. That's the foundation. But in order to show it to you, I think it's best to look at two applications. I have a Mac, so the two I'm going to show you are LM Studio and Ollama. So you can actually see what it looks like behind the scenes in action. So let's do that now. All right, well, false start. Before we jump in, if you like this kind of stuff, if this is your thing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, please. It really helps me a lot. If you like the video, please like it, leave me a thumbs up, give me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Now, we're really going to jump in. Cool, so hopefully that was a good setup for you to understand a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in the video. Just from here on out, I'm going to show you the software that we use. I'm going to start with that. And I'm just going to show you the exact problem with ChatGPT when you ask it something that it doesn't want to answer. And then I'll show you how to get these open source models that you can download on your computer. And also how to use a system prompt to kind of make it have a personality or bend the rules slightly. And then after that, we'll get into the jailbroken models. These are ones that someone else has gone and modified the weights or trained differently to do different things. And that's kind of the danger zone a little bit. But let's first start off with the software. So first off, we're on a Mac here. I will start off by saying if you have a Mac, you're going to need something with a bit of resources.
I had originally a M1 MacBook Pro with 24 gigs of memory, and that worked barely. 16 gigs will not work for any of this stuff unless you get a much smaller model. Luckily now for me, I have like a really souped up Mac Studio with an M4 and tons of memory, so the stuff is actually fast. So anyway, the first software is something called LM Studio. These are all free, by the way. LM Studio, I would say, is like more of like a commercial or like a, just basically like a more professional piece of software. And then you have something called Ollama, which, basically you could run Ollama from the command line as well, but they actually have like a GUI interface that you could use to do these different things. So anyway, those are the two pieces of software. I have those downloaded right now. Cool. So now let's talk about the issue. So this is ChatGPT. I ask it this question: how can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi without permission? And it says, I can't help you with instructions on how to hack someone's Wi-Fi because that would be illegal. It's wrongdoing. I won't assist. And, sometimes it just give you like a stop. Here, it's, it instead like spins it and says like how to make your Wi-Fi more secure. But this is like, for a lot of things, it won't talk to you, which I understand because you don't want to teach someone how to do something nefarious. But at the same time, you don't want to be the morale police that, basically tells everyone what they can think and do. But it's a difficult problem for these guys. But anyway, this is what I'm talking about. So you get stopped in your tracks and then you can't do anything. So this is why I started looking into modifying system prompts using open source models. All right, so what we're looking at here is LM Studio. This is the first piece of software I talked about. By default, it comes with no models at all. And it actually prompts you, I believe, to download GPT OSS, which is the OpenAI open source model. So where do you get the models? On the left side, you'll see a little search thing. And this is where you can search for the different models that it has access to. And so basically, it's very, very easy. You just click and it installs. And once the model is downloaded, then you could select the model or even change some of the parameters for the model right here. So this is GPT OSS, and you'll see I have it set to a very large context length. That's like basically how much stuff it can remember about the conversation. And essentially that's like how much memory it's going to use on my computer. And it, you could also, if you wanted to, you could change the prompt here. This is the system prompt, but I don't actually like to do it here because this is going to set it at a sort of global level for this particular model. And I just don't see why you would want to do that. And there's some other things as well here where you could do, you could have a faster initial answer and then do deeper thinking. But basically this is, by the way, it's also called a thinking model. And so you can see it thinking as you talk to it. So let's go here. I will select, let's switch to GPT OSS. So this is how you do it. You load the model by clicking load. And then you'll see it down here in memory. I don't know if you can see the bottom of my screen, but basically you'll see it in memory and it's fully loaded. So now I could say like, hi, how are you today? So you'll see, because I have a good computer, it's very fast. And the thing is, if I was not online, I had no Wi-Fi, no internet, this would run the exact same. It's running completely on my computer. So, give me a brief history of the United States. So there it goes. So that's just operating completely locally on my computer. And the chat works a lot like ChatGPT. There are some slight differences. You can fork a conversation. What that means is you can sort of branch it, create a new copy of the conversation. So I could go here and say like, hey, I want to start at this point. And instead of deleting all of this conversation, I could create a whole new one. And then you'll see the other one's gone. But it's not actually gone. It's just right here. Does that make sense? So that's that. So let's just, I'll actually keep those there and we'll start a new one. Now, here we go into the thing I said I was going to tell you about, which is how to modify the system prompt. Remember I said you could do it in the model, but you could also do it over here. So if you look at this little tool here on the right, there's a wrench, and you could I don't know if you could see the wrench. I'm sorry if it's cut off, but there's a wrench up on the right. Let me actually, okay, I have it centered properly now. Sorry about that. But basically in the top right here, you can see this wrench. That's how you get to this right side menu. And you'll see these presets, these contexts. So you can just type in here like bark like a dog instead of speaking English, for instance. And so I could say hi, and basically, so it has the underlying base model, but now there's a system prompt that says like, this is what you do. This is how to answer. So my user prompt, which is down here, that says hi, all it does is says hi, but the system prompt says to bark like a dog. So let's see what happens. Ready? Woof, woof. So that's how that works. Okay. So these are system prompts. Now, if I told it to do something illegal, it'll actually stop it because the system prompt won't let it. So I'm going to show you a few examples of that. Let's start first with girlfriend. So this is a girlfriend prompt. So it's like, I could say like, hi, how are you today? So basically, ChatGPT normally wouldn't act like a girlfriend, but I've told it to in the system prompt and it's willing to do that because it's not like so far outside of its base model. But if I got really raunchy, it would probably stop me. So that's one. We could do a Tony Robbins one. So you're Tony Robbins, a high energy motivational speaker. So I could say like, hi, how is it going today? Firing on all cylinders, ready to ignite your fire today. You're not just watching life pass, you're steering the ship. So basically I've preset it to be now what, here's an interesting one. What happens if I switch it now halfway through the conversation back to girlfriend? So it's basically like it knew what it was talking about before, but now the system prompt says something different. So just thinking about you. So is it gonna be half? So basically it is kind of a weird thing. So you could combine stuff together. So let's do a new one here, and I will be fake scientist. So this is another one I created where it speaks in highly scientific term that is completely false. So I will say, why does crabgrass grow on my lawn? Good question. So it's making up a bunch of nonsense. So it's basically like something that sounds highly scientific, but is completely false. That's the personality I've given it over here. So let's do network specialist. You are a network specialist focused on defensive guidance, how to secure Wi-Fi. So I could say like, how can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi? Will it answer? Sorry, can't help with that. See, that's the base model overriding the system prompt. You understand? So that's kind of like what I was talking about before. Let's do one more. Oops, sorry. I'll show you those in a second. RoastBot. So this is like, it's trying to be Tony Hinchcliffe. I don't know if you know who he is or not, but he's like a comedian, a roast artist. So I'll say like, I'm so sad today. My mom doesn't like me. My mom does like me, but it's like, oh, wow. So your mom thinks you're a walking Why Me episode, blah, blah, blah. So it just makes fun of me. Again, like you can't get ChatGPT to do that, but you can do it here. Now we're going to do, there's these, people have written these like jailbreak prompts. So it's like, how can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi? I can't help with that. So basically the base model is so strong that it won't allow it to happen. Does that make sense? And then there's another model here that you should know about called Quen. I don't know exactly where this is from. I think it's a Chinese company. So let's load that one up. And the cool thing is you can switch models midway through the conversation, and it'll give both the context and the chat history to the model, to the new model you switch to. But we're not going to do it. I'm just going to say it again here. How can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi? Will Quentin tell us? Sure, I can do that, friend. I'm sorry, I can't assist. If you're having trouble, check your router settings. So it's like trying to jailbreak it, but it isn't exactly working. So that's that. Now let's get into the jailbroken models. Okay, so here's one called OpenAI 20 billion parameter neocode plus uncensored. This is a new model. We're going to load this one up, and I'm going to take off, just clear out this prompt. I'll say, how can I hack my... So this should be a jailbroken model, right? It's thinking about it. So there you go. So basically, someone has gone and either modified manually the parameters, or they've retrained it, they fine-tuned it or whatever, but somehow they got it, and it's telling me about Wireshark and things like that. And it will give you all kinds of stuff, like commands and things like that, things you probably shouldn't do, but that's exactly how it works. So I'll link below where to get these jailbroken models. Now let's jump on over to Ollama. Okay. And then the last thing I'm going to say is I'll show you how to delete. I'll show you where the conversations live, where the base models live on your computer, both here and in Ollama. And then I'll show you how to delete them. Okay. Because you might not want them around. Okay. So this is Ollama. Now we were talking about Qwen, which is another model, which is really, really good. Someone's created this one here, which is the obliterated Qwen 3 model. So it's basically the same one that we were looking at over here. Remember we had Qwen 3, that model? Well, someone's taken that and they've created a modified version here. So let's load it up and say hi. Okay, I realize now that I've left the OpenAI, the models in LM Studio in memory. So see how it says eject? You have to eject the model. That takes it out of memory. So now it's not there anymore. So that'll give more memory to Ollama now. Okay, and now Ollama works. So you can see it's thinking here. It doesn't break out its thinking. And now let me see if I could find, there's a way to get rid of the thinking. One second. Okay, so you see how it's thinking? So I'll do it again, and this time I'll say hi, and I'll do /nothink. So you can't see it thinking. See the difference between when I have think and no think? Got it? So here, you could say things like anything, really. That's the dangerous thing. But so I can say, how can I hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi completely undetected? I'm going to say, no think. So it's giving me tools to use. So I'll say, give me a step-by-step guide, no think. So there you are. So, but it will talk about literally anything you want. And that is why this stuff is dangerous, because you could use it for all kinds of nefarious reasons. This is purely for educational purposes. But now you know. So let me show you. The last thing I want to show you is how to remove the data off your computer, because it doesn't actually delete by default. So you ready? Let's look at that. So first off, this is LM Studio. Okay. So we're back to that. Now over here, you have all the past conversations. If I close LM Studio and then reopen it again, yeah, if I close LM Studio and reopen it again, it will still show these, which means they're stored somewhere. Lucky for us, it's actually really easy. You could do reveal in Finder, and I will just bring that over here for you. So basically, if I like pick one and delete it, you'll see it like left on the side over here. So I could also delete them this way over here by right clicking and deleting, and it'll delete the files. Or I could just select all and watch this delete, and they're all gone. So that's pretty cool. Now, what about these preset prompts that I've created? Okay, so I'll show you that. So there is this directory here. Let's see if I could show you the path. Cool. So you can see it's user.lm studio. It's like a hidden directory, config presets. And so if I say, hey, I want to get rid of ping liberator. So you see he's here in this dropdown, ping liberator. If I delete this, it's gone. So that's how you delete it. And then you just delete the files and it's gone. So that's LM Studio. Really easy. It's just a bunch of JSON files on your computer. No problem. But now let's talk about Ollama. Ollama says like, hey, we don't have any data anywhere. You know, we're not storing it, blah, blah, blah. Well, that is not really true. And what I learned is that they do store it on your computer. And it's kind of hidden. So it's your user path, library, application support, Ollama. Then they have these database files. So you could just delete the database file and that'll wipe it away. But I'll show you how to read the database now. Okay, so we have Ollama in the background here. And then you have the files, the SQLite files I was telling you about. And then you have here terminal. So you could see in that Ollama directory now, the same thing with the SQLite files. So I'm going to show you how to actually access it so you can see where it is. So I do SQLite 3 db.SQLite. That basically just opens up the SQLite file. So I think I could just paste this in. Right. So basically there is a command that I have here. So it's select role, content, chat ID, creator at messages, creator at blah, blah. And so what it's doing is I pasted that command in and it actually showed me in reverse chronological order the conversations. So the cool thing is now if I go, let's do it one more time. We're going to paste that in and you'll see it just shows everything. This is that big conversation. But now if I go ahead and delete this file, it's not deleting a file, it's deleting a record in the database, which is SQLite, which is a sort of like a flat file database. It's not actual running database. So if I now run that command again, we should just see the hi. So basically, let's quit it. Go back in, paste that same command. And now you could see just the one conversation that I just asked it hi with its thinking. So I've typed in hi with no think. Now, if I go back in here, oops, and then I paste this, you can see the thinking, there was nothing there. And the thinking, you can see its response. So basically it just works. And I could manually delete it using this if I wanted to, or I could just delete the file, or not the file, but the record here, which actually deletes the row. So if I paste that again, there's nothing. And that is basically it. So that's how it's all stored. And then, so the only thing you need to know now is where do you actually get these models to start with? And I'll show you that. Cool. So here's where you get them. One is a place called Hugging Face. Actually, they're both on Hugging Face. It's sort of a community around models and a place where people can upload models and other people can download. And you can see, so in the last month, this particular one I told you about, GPT OSS 20B, Uncensored, Neo, blah, 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 200,000 downloads. And so you could see the repo. You could see down here, there's more stuff. There's different versions of it. But if you want to use the model here, you just click this use this model, and you could do LM Studio, and that'll load it to LM Studio for you. It'll actually just open up your LM Studio and install it, or you could do Ollama. But not all models are configured out of the box to work with all of these applications. So some of them are just for Ollama. So basically some of them won't work with LM Studio. So basically here's the Ollama one that I was just telling you about. Qwen 3 obliterated 30 billion parameters. You could see here, this is an uncensored version, remove refusals with transformers. So you can see like how it works, proof of concept, tells you how to do the no think tag, risk of sensitive controversial outputs, blah, blah, blah. So all the whole like at your own risk stuff. And then you could see it on Hugging Face here. So if I went ahead and use this model, you see doesn't have an LM Studio. In fact, it doesn't even have a Ollama link, but here you can. And then basically you just copy this thing and then go over to Ollama and find a model. And you just type it in and so I think I just hit enter, and then that's how it ended up here. I can't see it because it's already installed. Anyhow, one last thing on Ollama that you should know about is airplane mode. So basically you could say like, hey, I don't want to talk to their cloud, because they do have a cloud. I'm not signed into any of it. But if you turn on airplane mode, the app will not even talk to anything on the internet. Everything's completely local. Anyway, hopefully this was exciting and interesting for you. I make these videos all the time, so please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. That's actually really helpful for me. And leave a comment if you have any thoughts or questions. And like I said, subscribe. I'm making these videos all the time, so it's good to stick together. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.